Mandela Effect is basically when you remember something differently than maybe what is in the reality. I mean, you like the Berenst bears, right? This one's an interesting one too for me because when I was young, I used to have a library of what I call Berenstein bears still, because back in, my reality, it was Stein, and I couldn't pronounce that, or I didn't know how to pronounce that. So I asked my dad, how do you say this? And he said, oh, it's probably a Jewish person that wrote that. So it's spelled Stein, or it's pronounced Stein, like you would, the famous Einstein, Stein. Now, there was a point where everybody was saying Berenstain bears, and I'm like, what? Stain bears? And everywhere online, everything like that was Berenstain bears, and that was one of the big Mandela shifts for me, Mandela Effect shifts. If you're new to my channel, I'm Trina, your intuitive guide from Canada, helping you navigate life's energies. Okay, so we looked at Berenstain, whatever bears they are now, right? But let's look at some other Mandela effects that are quite interesting, because I find that I'm at a point where a lot of the Mandela effects are now converging. So here's an example. Hitler now has blue eyes, okay? You look all over the internet, and that's the reality. He's always had blue eyes, supposedly, right? But look, his mustache is bushier. Like, he just doesn't look like the normal Hitler. But this is the reality we're in. This is the Hitler that is in this timeline, or has been inserted in this timeline. Now, what's happening here with the Hitler one is that still lots of people remember with him having brown eyes and even post about it. Look at this one, Don't you think it's funny that Hitler was always about German people having blonde hair and blue eyes and all that kind of stuff? But, look at him. He's got the brown eyes, and the brown hair, and you know what I mean? So there's an example of a Mandela effect that's like, it's like two timelines converging, and it makes you wonder. Now, there's some regular ones I'm sure you've seen, like the Curious George, back in my timeline or in my memories, he always had a tail. I mean, he's a monkey. Of course he has a tail. And he would use that tail to take the hat off the dude, right? Like, there was a joke about that all the time, right? But no, Curious George never had a tail. I'm like, what? Okay, so that's a weird one. Now, another interesting one that I want to remark is about the Pepsi logo. Now we know it as the red is on top, but there have been a few times with this Pepsi that it's changed from red to blue, depending on the timeline shifts. You can still find pictures on Google where it was like this picture, where they're showing both the blue on top and the red on top. And that's like an example of this convergence. It's like they try to insert a memory, or insert a timeline change, I should say, not a memory. Insert like some kind of change in the timeline, but it doesn't fully go out or fully it's like a mistake. It's a blip. A lot of times we'll call it like a glitch in the universe, or a glitch in the simulation, right? Because it's coming to light that we are in a holographic universe, which is a whole other video for a whole other time. And you might have remembered the Monopoly man as having a monocle. Well, that never existed. In this timeline, at least, or in this change of reality, or whatever you're going to call it, this Mandela effect is he never had a monocle. I'm like, okay, maybe that's my memory. Okay, because a lot of people say, Mandela effect, that's stupid. It's just your memory. Okay, well, do you remember the apple? The Macintosh apple. It was a famous apple. In fact, Apple computers took it as well for them to be, and that's what there's the Apple, and it's the Macintosh. Well, actually, the real Apple is now called Macintosh Apple, which doesn't make sense at all, because I remember it And that's why Apple said, I'm the Mac. I'm the Macintosh, right? Apple computer, the Mac, taken from the Macintosh Apple. Like, some of these ones just make me shake my head. Like, really? Okay, and then you've probably seen Star Wars. Growing up, it was always Luke, I am your father. And I know this because it was famous back in the 80s and 90s for us, Star Wars. And back, when I was growing up in the 80s, really young, we didn't have all these electronic toys, so we'd talk in the fan. I seen a meme the other day about that, like, now you got iPads and this is what we used to do, talk in fans. And of course, it was the ultimate, Luke, I am your father. And the fan would make your voice sound like Darth Vader, right? Like, stuff like that. But no, he never said, Luke, I am your father. He says, no, I am your father. I'm like, really? That just doesn't even sound right. And I mean, there's so many movie references and movie things that have changed. The Bible has changed. Songs have changed. I used to listen to Queen so much. That tape I had, cassette tape back in the 80s and 90s, cassette tapes were a thing. You may or may not be, too young to remember that, but I used to listen to my Queen tape over and over and over, especially during summer holidays. And oh man, we are the champions. And then at the end, of the world. Like, that was the big finale. It was the big thing. And we used to dance to it and be like really excited about that part, right? No. Now in this timeline, he doesn't even say of the world. It just ends at, we are the champions. Done. Song over. Okay, so I had a feeling I had to check the Queen songs on YouTube, and there's another convergence where some videos show of the world at the end and some don't. So it kind of, I don't know, it's one of them, sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. So it's really weird. And there's even videos on YouTube from people who are like, not having of the world is very disturbing to me. But then in some videos I saw that it still was of the world. So it's really weird. Some have it and some don't. So that's one of them. I'm telling you, the timelines right now are really converging or crossing over. It's kind of weird. What's also bad is that when you remember a Mandela Effect and someone else doesn't, because that's okay too, your memory, your timeline is a little different because we're in a multiverse reality. There's so many layers of the onion, right? So you might remember something and your spouse or your friend doesn't remember, and they're like, what are you talking about? It's always been like, and then you have a fight because you both think each other's crazy, and it can cause like fights, and that's kind of the weird part of it. The kidneys. So back when I was young, we used to do this thing called the kidney shot, and you punch them in the lower back, like where the kidneys were. Now the kidneys in this timeline are in under your rib cage for protection. I'm like, what? That's a big Mandela Effect for me. Do you remember when JFK got shot? I remember this clearly because my mom had books about it, and I used to always read her books, and with the pictures, there was always just 4 people in the car. Now they've inserted in the timeline, it was 6 people in the car, and with this like stretchy kind of looking limo thing, and you're like, what? That just looks weird. That just does not look at all like what it's supposed to be, right? Okay, and I do have a bonus Mandela Effect. What happened to me? So this was sort of this blip or glitch in the matrix more than maybe a Mandela Effect. I don't know, but I had to go to the washroom. I had to go pee, and my dog, I decided I'd let him out. So I opened the door, let him out, and I said, okay, Shadow, I'll be right back. I'm going to go pee, and then I'll come back for you, kind of thing. And we would go at the same time. He'd go outside, and I'd go to the bathroom. So I was all alone in the house. So I went to the bathroom, and I had the bathroom door open. And as I sat down to pee, the dog walks by. Shadow walks by, and I'm like, what? I just let you out. And I watched you go down the stairs, and like before I shut the door, like, oh, it's weird. That's when it was really, and I felt this weird feeling. And it kind of felt like a tingle and a tightness in the chest. And it was just this feeling of change in some way. And I was a little bit like, what's happening here? That feeling of confusion. And I'm like, oh, okay, my rational brain kicks in and said I must have not shut the door, or it wasn't shut properly and he opened it, or I don't know. And not that he can open doors, but I don't know. I was just trying to think of rational explanation. Anyway, I finish up, go and check, and no, the door is shut. And I was just like, what happened there? It was so weird. And then, my friend, soon after that story happened, she said that her walls disappeared. They just went like, and then she could see, she was in the house and she could see into the garage where her hubby was working. There was suddenly no wall and she could see him, and she's like, what? So there was like this blip in our reality too. And I should be recording these in a timeline, because I'd like to see, how different Mandela effects of the world affect in your personal life. I mean, it's cool because you read stuff online like, oh man, just lots of crazy stuff, right? How can we affect our own timeline, and can we create our own Mandela effects, and how could we do that? So starting to get into that. This channel is really about everything energy. There's energy from different dimensions. There's energy from... This one was interesting. So it starts off singular, and then it breaks off into 3 lines with a whole bunch of sort of the faces. So I think it was trying to teach about this timeline stuff. The spiritual realms, there's all sorts of energy that we work with here. So although I'm supposed to be working on my weekly forecast right now and my monthly forecast for July, I needed to do this video. So I hope you enjoyed it, and let's learn how maybe we can control it more in our life for more love, more abundance, more awareness, more expansion, and heighten the frequency of Earth, because I think that that's what's happening here. Is Earth is really increasing the Schumann resonance right now too. There's a lot of increase in energy, and I do feel that we are entering the golden age. If we haven't already, we are entering a new time of energy and learning more about the quantum fields and about all of that stuff. So stay tuned as this channel evolves. I started off a long time ago bending spoons, as you can see here. That is still my most popular video, my first and most popular video. I think I've evolved a lot from just bending spoons. That's one aspect of bending your reality, but let's explore more. All right, and thanks for watching. I do offer readings, to help increase your abundance and happiness and joy on this timeline that you're on, as well as orgone energy pyramids and devices, and also the Power of 8 chakra oracle cards, which is energy healing, intuitive guidance, and affirmations all in one to positively affect your timeline. All right, thanks for watching. I'm Trina, your intuitive guide, helping you navigate life's energies. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.